Today's video is sponsored by SoundRaw. So the other day I did a video talking about how to record bass on an iPhone, and when I was doing those sessions I started realizing there were some techniques and things that I use to spice up my bass lines and make them more interesting that I've never shared on my channel before. Today what I want to do is basically go from like kind of a level one, kind of more beginner-ish level of way of thinking about how to spice up your bass lines in some ways, all the way to a level 5, which is kind of more of a advanced mindset when it comes to spicing up your bass lines so you guys can make your bass lines way more interesting. I want to give a huge thank you to SoundRaw for sponsoring today's video. If you guys are interested in trying out this AI music generator, check out my code. I'll flash it up on the screen. You can save up to 50% off when you sign up today. So a lot of times when I practice, I like to use AI music generators. If I can't think of like a progression that I want to play or anything like that, and I just want something to play with, it's kind of like a little hack for, making your own practice tracks. But I'm going to be using this AI music generator called SoundRaw. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to go to the website soundraw.io, and basically what I'm going to do is just go to where it says create music, click on it, and it gives you a whole bunch of options as far as like what genre you're wanting to go for, and also like mood. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, even theme, what kind of content you're doing. But since I'm just making a backing track, I'm just gonna do like maybe drums and bass and maybe pop or lo-fi hip-hop. That would be fun. So right now it's creating the music, creating the tracks. Let's see if we can find something that have an interesting progression for this video. All right, I'll say that's a cool idea. I don't know if that'd be good for what we're trying to go through today. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, if you're worried about like, oh my gosh, it has bass in it, you can actually take out the bass in all these. So that's the reason why I'm like, I can take out the bass. I want to find one that has a good vibe. Ooh, I think this one will work. Okay, so I think we'll use this one. This one seems like a cool one. So what we'll basically do, I'm going to just go through and just cut out all the bass parts. All right, now that I've kind of like made the arrangement for the track, now let's try and see what this progression, if I can figure out what this progression is. It seems really simple, but let's see. This is simple. This is super simple, but this is exactly what you want. You want something super simple that's not like gonna be too complex for you. This is literally only 2 chords in this progression, which I think is just like a E flat major 7 and a D minor 7. And that's it. So with that, I think we have our track. So what I'm gonna do is bounce this track out from SoundRaw and put it into my recording software, and we're going to get to our first level of spicing up our bass lines. So now for level 1, I don't want you to think this is just going to be for beginners, but really this level 1 feeds into every level that we're going over today. If you're a beginner or if you're like more advanced, don't skip past this level and just go with me all the way to level 5, even if you already know some of these things, because once you start putting these together, it's going to spice up your bass playing 100%. Now, level 1, we're going to be looking at the root notes. So this one is just D and then E flat. That's it. That's the whole progression, okay? That's pretty much what we normally start off doing, is that kind of thing, just playing those 2 notes. And so before we get into all the techniques when it comes to like feel and different things like that, the first thing that I always think about is like syncopated versus pulse. And what that means basically in my mind, this is kind of my own little term that I made up, is basically, am I syncopated with the kick drum or am I just playing a pulse? And so syncopated with the kick drum is because I know this groove is like boom, 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 boom. So that was what I would consider syncopated, all right? Syncopated is where I'm playing with that kick drum. Boom, 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 boom. And then another way of playing it is doing it with, I call it the pulse, or drive, which is where you're playing like either 8th notes, 16th notes, or you use like 1, boom, 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 boom. You see what I'm saying? It's not following and connected, syncopated with the kick, but what it's doing is it's creating a pulse with the kick. Even though you're not like playing directly with it, it's creating a pulse, you know what I'm saying? But basically you can see how this changes the whole vibe by just like doubling it up or dun, dun. It feels like completely different than if I just play like bum, 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 bum. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how I always, try to think about like how I'm going to play something. Is like, okay, is this the feel that I'm going for? Am I trying to, because I feel like sometimes you play like a pulse like that, a fast pulse especially, it feels almost like kind of rock-ish. But if you're looking for something that's more like kind of tight and funky, you may do like more of a syncopated vibe, boom, boom, boom. And so that's pretty much my first go-to when it comes to playing root notes. So the next part of this is creating good feel with your root notes, which I use left and right hand muting. Both of these types of muting are very, very important because they just have different vibes. So whenever you use a left hand mute, basically what you're doing is you're trying to get more attack from it. So watch this. So if I play this, see, it's got a little bit more attack. Now, while watch this, let me show you my right hand mute and how that feels now. You feel the difference? It pretty much is giving, when you play this, you hear that attack more, but you play this, it's more round and kind of more of a, you feel it more versus you hearing it more. And so I use these in a lot of different contexts. Sometimes I like to do a lot of, use my left hand for if I'm playing live, and I'm wanting to be kind of more high energy. I do, use my left hand mute. And then if I'm playing kind of softer, I use my thumb and I do my right hand mute here. So you see how those feel very different? The way you do these techniques, very simple. The left hand technique, all you're doing is just playing your note and using these extra fingers you have right here and just laying it on the string until you get to the desired, mutedness, I'd say. The way you do it with your right hand, pretty simple. A lot of you guys probably have heard of it. Use the fatty part of your hand right here, your palm, put it towards around the pickup or towards the bridge side of your pickup, and then use your thumb to kind of pluck, and it gives you more of a round sound. See, like that's really muted. So if you want to soften it up, what I do is just go more towards the bridge. Now it's letting it ring out a little bit more. You see that? right, now the last tip with level 1 is using short and ghost notes, okay? Short notes being basically if you're playing a note, okay, like this, you see how it's just ringing out, you know, and it's just like, okay, that's cool. But if I played this ringing out like this, it doesn't really feel tight, even though I'm playing the right, you know, right hand technique, you know, locked in. It feels like just kind of like, it doesn't feel tight. So one thing that you could do if you're just playing root notes is to play short notes. And so now when I'm playing my syncopation, what I'm playing with the drums, like, so now when I do short notes, it almost feels like it makes you and the kick drum feel like unified, like it's one sound. Now, the last part of this is ghost notes. And so basically, if you know what ghost notes are, I'll give you just a quick little rundown. It's basically when you play a note, but you're not playing, you don't hear a pitch out of it. So it's just like, so like this. So this is the note when you have a pitch with it, but then when you pull up your finger a little bit, you get this kind of muted note, which is what we call a ghost note. And the reason why ghost notes are important is that you can make your bass lines more percussive. So if I'm playing this, now I'm making it more percussive, and it feels like it's almost like you're adding percussion to your bass line, where it's almost more like you're playing drums and bass, you know what I'm saying? All right, now level 2, these levels are gonna probably start to go a little bit faster now that we got a lot of the preliminaries and foundation things out of the way. So on level 2, we're gonna be adding a fifth. And all a fifth note is the fifth note of whatever, your root is, or fifth note of the scale. So like, let's just say I'm playing this D, which is the first note. You're just gonna count up your major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. And there's your fifth, that fifth note from that. So now a way that I always figure out how to find my fifth is by going up 2 frets and down 1 string. So you got, now if you go down 2 strings, you get the octave. So you want to get that fifth. Okay. And so what I do with this is now I have a note that go to add some kind of new nuance, some kind of lick, or just kind of add to the groove a little bit. So now, so you're not just playing one root note. So watch this. So that's kind of playing it more in a syncopated way. Now we're gonna try it with just kind of like a pulse, like 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting to see how like that first level is starting to play into this. Now, if you want to add more like shorter notes, see, now it's starting to take new forms now that you're playing shorter notes, you're playing, syncopated versus pulse. So this is the reason why these are so important. That's the reason why level 1 is important, is because now we can play around with when we start adding notes to this bass line. So the reason why fifths are so cool, and the reason why they're very widely used, is because it doesn't really indicate a major or minor, tonality, because the fifth is not, that has the same harmony as a third or major third or minor third. So it works with a major and minor chord. So that's the reason why you can use this, pretty much anywhere, because fifths can go with either type of chord. Now, level 3, we're going to be looking at Triad Arpeggios. Now, if you don't know anything about arpeggios, definitely check out my video talking about arpeggios from beginner to pro. It's a great kind of like taking you all the way from the beginning of what arpeggios are all the way to like more a pro level of thinking about it. So if you haven't watched that, definitely go check that out if you're interested in learning everything about arpeggios. So all arpeggios are chords played one note at a time. So like if I played, a major chord, that's me playing all of the notes together simultaneously, but playing an arpeggio, you're just gonna play like this. And the reason why this is important on bass is because a lot of times if we play a bunch of chords, we're starting to get in the piano and guitar territory. Doesn't mean you can't play chords, but when you're playing in a band setting, you wanna try to stay in your lane as much as possible, and so everything feels tight and together. So what I like to do to kind of hint at chords is I play these arpeggios. Instead of playing just like the whole chord. So that's the reason why these are important. Now, the way you find an arpeggio, a major triad, for example, is you're just going to play the first note of the major scale, third note of the major scale, and fifth note. So you get this 3-note chord, 1, 3, 5, which is a major triad. Now, the way you find a minor triad is pretty simple. All you're going to do is just play the root, flat 3, and 5. But you can also play it like this. Root, flat 3, and 5. Like that. Okay. So now the reason why this is very, very fun to use as another level is because now what we're doing is we're adding notes to our bass line that weren't there before. So we're just starting to figure out what are those notes that really, really work with what I'm playing. So now watch this. So we got our root notes. And then we add our fifth to it. Now we're going to add our triad. See, now we're starting to add more depth to our bass line. So what I'm doing now is all I did right there was just play a D minor triad, and then E flat major triad. And that's all I was doing. And what you do is now you start to create and use those like ideas when it comes to ghost notes. And so this is the reason why it's so cool to use these, because now I don't even just have to do it like that. I can, change the order of how I play the triad. Or if I can even start, maybe even not start on the actual note. Instead of starting there, I can start. See, the ideas and the things you can do are so endless. And that's the reason why this is so much fun and such a way of leveling up your bass line ideas. And this is just triads. Now, another reason why this level 3 is really important is because now what we're going to do is we're going to take what we did in the last level with fifths and add it to these triads, okay? Hopefully I don't lose you on this. So just like we were doing the minor triad right here, which is that, root, flat 3 and 5, and then the major triad right here for E flat, which is just root, third, fifth. Like I said, the fifth note can work with major or minor chords, or really just about any chord, because that harmony is pretty neutral. And so what I like to do sometimes to even expand this even more is I play fifths on each note of the triad arpeggio. Watch this. So like if I did this right here, so this is my first, my root, flat 3 and 5. I'm just gonna play the fifth for that root, the fifth for that flat 3, and then the fifth for that fifth. Now, sometimes when you find these fifths, like that one may not always work with every single chord, but it works. Most of these work pretty generally with almost any progression. This progression specifically, it can like open up a lot of different options. So this is just a way that I really use to level up my lines and come up with creative ideas. Now the next level is really gonna take it up a notch. So now level 4 of this is when we're starting to get a little bit more into adding another note to the mix and really starting to branch out a little bit with the different notes that we are using. If you know anything about chords or triads, you know that you have 4-note chords, and that's what we're going to get into in this one. Is so we have 4-note arpeggios or 4-note chords, which the one that I like to go to and the one I would probably use on these is like a minor 7, which is a root, flat 3, 5, and flat 7. That's all it is, all the notes. You see how I'm just adding another note to the mix? It's just taking a little piece at a time, letting yourself be creative with it, and then, adding something else to it. So what we're doing is taking this minor 7 and utilizing all these notes to create something cool. Now when I go to this E flat, which is a major, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play a major 7, which is a one that I use a lot. And that arpeggio is just the root, third, fifth, and 7. Like I said, if you really want to know really in-depth arpeggios, definitely go check out my video where I talk about going beginner to pro on arpeggios. I talk about a few more arpeggios and some different ways you could practice and master these, which will help level this level up even more. So now we have these choices of notes, of 4-note arpeggios. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna learn how to play these, and this is kind of another part of this level, is not only are we gonna do 4-note arpeggios, but we're going to learn them in an octave form, all the notes up an octave. So watch this. So if I played this minor 7, okay, those are all the unique notes right there. Root, flat third, fifth, flat 7. But it starts over, if you go here, that's the root again, just an octave higher. And there's that flat third again, an octave higher. So you got this. Okay, and so what this does is now you have even more note choices, even though you're not adding any new notes. Just by playing that octave, it adds a different feeling. And so that's what's really, really cool about this. And so now what we could do is do the same thing on the major 7, that E flat major 7. So we got our root, third, fifth, and 7th, and you have the root just an octave higher here. So, and then you could also go down to that 7 here, lower, and then you could also go to that 5th right there. So it gives you even more notes to play around with. So if you're playing like, so we go to this major. Minor. So now you start to see how you can get more choices, more, ways of just kind of opening up your ideas when it comes to bass lines. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add level 2 to this too, because this is another way you can just really spice this up, is now adding fifths to each of those notes, those new notes that you have. So like we're playing this, you can play a fifth on each of those notes, just like we did before. But now you'll notice when you get to this G string, there's no other string to go to. So what I like to do sometimes is just go to the E string. So if I did this on the E string, I can extend and do fifths on all of them. So watch this. Yeah, right there. And now when I go up an octave to my extending up to, that scale, I have more options. So now when I'm playing, I can just be like, so now I can just choose notes that really add to the bass line and really spice it up. So all I'm doing, what I did right there at the end there was that E flat major. I'm just doing that E flat major 7 just with fifths on each note. So that's just the fifth note. Remember, don't forget the formula: up 2 frets, down 1 string. And that's how you get each of these. Just make sure you remember to think about the bass as patterns, not necessarily like a piano, because a piano has unique notes. Every note looks unique, but on the bass, every note looks the same. So the dominant way of memorizing and learning any technique on bass is through patterns. Now we have one more level to go, and this is going to be the one that really, really takes this to another level. Level 5 is going to be where we're taking these concepts up an octave, okay? So now you're probably just like, oh, well, we just kind of learned how to do that, with this, these arpeggios and such. But this is a different octave, okay? We're basically gonna take it all the way up the neck, way up here, okay? I've got my D minor 7 arpeggio that we did earlier, which is here, okay? All I'm gonna do is just take that up all the way up an octave. All right, same notes, same thing. It just sounds way different. So the thing is that when you play anything up an octave on the bass, it stands out. It almost makes a moment. And so whenever you're playing a groove like this, it feels like it completely changes the whole vibe. You're like, ooh, what is that? Anytime I've ever heard somebody play like an octave or something like that, and I was like, what did they just do? That is crazy. All I'm doing is what we just learned down here on level 4, 4-note arpeggio. And we're just taking it up an octave up the neck. Same thing with that E flat major 7. So I'm just playing it up an octave, and just mixing those two in just makes the biggest difference, okay? So I'm just playing these two notes. I can just play these root notes and then add that in to make the bass line even cooler. So watch this. You see what I'm saying? It's now starting to add and make it more and more creative and really spice it up. So the reason why I wanted to do this video today is because I wanted to help anybody who has ever hit a wall when it comes to your bass playing. You're just like, man, I just don't know where to go next. Because they always say the bass playing is the easiest thing to pick up, but the hardest thing to progress at. And so today what I want to do is try to start notching at that wall, kind of like taking it down brick by brick, so you guys can get more creative with your bass lines and make bass fun again. So hopefully this video has helped you in some way. Please let me know in the comments if you like this style of video, because I'll definitely consider doing more of this type of lesson. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe. I know a lot of people who watch my videos are not subscribed when I look at my analytics. So if you guys like this content, please consider subscribing. Also, if you're interested in supporting this channel, feel free to check out my website, travisdykesmusic.com, where you can find practice tracks, loops, and a whole lot of other things. And also, check out my affiliate links in the description below, to where if you click and make a purchase through any of those links, this channel gets a kickback so we can bring you more videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.